The pure and simple truth is rarely pure and never simple, wrote Oscar Wilde. And so I believe it goes with honesty. Although honesty seems simple on the face of it, you're either being honest or you're not. Honesty can be complicated. Many tales are told in many cultures to teach people right from wrong. This folk tale, called Truth and Falsehood, comes from Greece. Once upon a time, truth and falsehood met each other on the road. "Good afternoon," said truth. "Good afternoon," returned falsehood. "And how are you doing these days?" "Not very well at all. I'm afraid, sighed truth. "The times are tough for a fellow like me, you know." "Yes, I can see that," said falsehood, glancing up and down at truth's ragged clothes. "You look like you haven't had a bite to eat in quite a long time." "To be honest, I haven't," said truth. "No one seems to want to employ me nowadays. Wherever I go, most people ignore me or mock me. It's getting discouraging, I can tell you. I'm beginning to ask myself why I put up with it." "And why the devil do you? Come with me," said falsehood, "and I'll show you how to get along. There's no reason in the world why you can't stuff yourself with as much as you want to eat like me and dress in the finest clothes like me. But you must promise not to say a word against me while we're together." So truth promised and went along with falsehood for a while, not because he liked his company so much, but because he was so hungry he thought he'd faint soon if he didn't get something in his stomach. They walked down the road until they came to a city, and falsehood at once led the way to the very best table at the very best restaurants. "Waiter, bring us your choicest meats, your sweetest sweets, your finest wine," he called, and they ate and drank all afternoon. At last, when they could hold no more, falsehood began banging his fist on the table and calling for the manager, who came running at once. "What kind of place is this?" falsehood snapped. "I gave that waiter a gold piece nearly an hour ago, and he still hasn't brought our change." The manager summoned the waiter, who said he'd never even seen a penny out of the gentleman. "What?" falsehood shouted so that everyone in the place turned and looked. "I can't believe this place. Innocent, law-abiding citizens come in to eat, and you rob them of their hard-earned money. You're a pack of thieves and liars. You may have fooled me once, but you'll never see me here again. Here," he threw a gold piece at the manager. "Now this time, bring me my change." But the manager, fearing his restaurant's reputation would suffer, refused to take the gold piece, and instead brought falsehood change for the first gold piece he had claimed to have spent. Then the manager took the waiter aside and called him a scoundrel, said he had a mind to fire him. And as much as the waiter protested that he'd never collected a cent from the man, the manager refused to believe him. The waiter wrung his hands and sighed, "Oh, truth, where have you hidden yourself? Have you now deserted even us hard-working souls?" "No, I'm here," truth groaned to himself. "But my judgment gave way to my hunger, and now I can't speak up without breaking my promise to falsehood." As soon as they were on the street, falsehood gave a hearty laugh and slapped truth on the back. "You see how the world works," he cried. "I managed it all quite well, didn't I? Don't you think?" But truth slipped from his side. "I'd rather starve than live as you do, he said. And so, truth and falsehood went their separate ways and never traveled together again. Ah, that it could be so simple. But you and I know that truth and falsehood, honesty and dishonesty, travel together in us all the time. Every time we speak or choose not to speak, every time we take action or not, truth and falsehood are in dialogue within us. And the situations in which we make choices are not always clear. In some cases, like truth in the folktale, we are choosing whether or not to sell a piece of our soul. William J. Bennett, editor of the Book of Virtues, where I found the story, wrote, "To be honest is to be real, genuine, authentic, and bona fide. To be dishonest is to be partly feigned, forged, fake, or fictitious. Honesty expresses both self-respect and respect for others. Dishonesty fully respects neither oneself or others. Dishonesty would have no role to play in a world that revered reality and was inhabited by fully rational creatures. Human beings are not fully rational, however. Human beings need both practice and study over time to become persons of integrity and effective goodwill." I don't know about you, but I find the conversational phrase, "to be honest," a curious thing. I tend to assume that people I interact with are being honest. So when somebody in the course of a conversation says, "Well, to be honest," I find myself wondering if all the other stuff they said was dishonest. You know what I mean? We have daily interactions with people on an ordinary level, and then someone says, "Well, to be perfectly honest." And then we hear what they're really thinking or feeling. Maybe that phrase is a cue for us to lean in and listen. Maybe that phrase is a signal of trust. I hope so. Unless someone says, "Well, to be brutally honest." Oh, how I resist that phrase. Why would anyone I care about want to be brutally anything with me? There is enough brutality in the world. On the rare occasion that someone says to me, "Well, to be brutally honest," I hold my breath for whatever comes after the comma and hope that I'll survive. Well, there are different kinds of honesty, and there are different kinds of lies. There are lies of commission and lies of omission. There are bald-faced lies and secret lies. There are little white lies, and there are life-transforming lies. There are illegal lies and immoral lies. There are lies that pretend and lies that protect. Susan Sontag wrote, "Lying is the most simple form of self-defense." There are different kinds of honesty, too. There is brutally honest and gently honest and something in between. There is honesty that harms and honesty that heals. Sometimes honesty does both. In the short run, honesty may hurt, but in the long run, it promotes healing. Are there as many kinds of honesty as there are types of lies? I don't know. But I do know that being consistently honest takes practice. Susan Campbell, a relationship coach and teamwork consultant for Fortune 500 companies, claims, "We're all hypocrites. to one degree or another. In her book, Getting Real, 10 Truth Skills You Need to Live an Authentic Life, she asks, I'll ask this of all of us, have you ever been bored listening to someone but acted interested? Like maybe right now? No, never. Have you ever pretended to like someone more than you did? Have you ever pretended to like someone less than you really did? Have you had trouble admitting you didn't know something you were supposed to know? Have you acted happy when you felt sad? Have you avoided telling someone something you feared might be hurtful? If you answered yes to many of these questions, rest assured you're not alone, she continues. We all lie, sugarcoat, pretend, or withhold. Why? The most common reasons people give are to avoid hurting someone's feelings, to avoid looking foolish, to avoid conflict, disagreement, or anger, to ensure that things turn out right, and to avoid feeling out of control. We lie to avoid whatever we perceive as dangerous. The truth is often more confusing, paradoxical, uncomfortable, or messy than we might wish it to be. It cannot be controlled. Well, her book offers 10 practical skills that promise to help us move the needle from our desire to control to our ability to relate, and as a consequence, move us away from hypocrisy and toward honesty. The skills to practice are things like experiencing what is in the present moment, being transparent, noticing your intent, holding differences, sharing mixed emotions, and embracing silence. She says the 10 truth skills constitute an awareness practice, and you can only be as authentic as you are self-aware. In an article called Tell the Truth and Live Longer by David Ropiak, he wrote, when you lie and you are subconsciously or consciously afraid you'll get caught, it creates stress. And lie detectors depend on this. They work by sensing the changes in skin electricity and pulse and breathing rate, even the pitch of your voice, from slightly tightened vocal cords, produced by the chemical reactions you're undergoing when you're stressed. Anita Kelly and Lijian Wang of Notre Dame recruited a group of 110 people from 18 to 71 years old and told them that once a week for 10 weeks, they'd have to come in a lie detector test report how many times in the previous week they had lied. But the group was divided in half. 55 of them got explicit instructions in how to avoid lying. The other group got no instructions, just the request to come in once a week, tell the truth about how many times they had lied last week. Well, turns out everybody lied less. But the group that had gotten advice on how to avoid lying reduced their fabrications far more. And in questionnaires, those who had lied less reported better mental and physical health. They reported improvements in their relationships, less trouble sleeping, less tension, fewer headaches, and fewer sore throats. Well, that study indicates that dishonesty is stressful for individuals. I was also interested to learn about the social consequences of dishonesty in Daniel Goleman's book, Social Intelligence. Goleman wrote, the specific neural radar for insincerity was revealed in a study where volunteers' brain images were taken as they watched several actors tell a tragic story. A strong difference emerged in the particular neural regions activated depending on the facial expression of the actor doing the telling. If the face of the actor showed an appropriate sadness, the listener's amygdala and related circuits for sadness activated, matching the actor's sincerity. But if the actor's face was smiling during the sad tale, an emotional mismatch, the listener's brain activated a site in the brain specializing in vigilance for social threats. In that case, the listeners actively disliked the person telling the story. Well, Goleman's description teaches me that the dishonesty of hiding one's true feelings and presenting an emotional mismatch to others sparks suspicion in relationships. It activates vigilance in the brains of people witnessing our dishonesty. This cannot bode well for becoming a people, a community of honesty. But wait, there's more. Goleman reports 2 women, complete strangers, had just watched a harrowing documentary, a film of the human aftermath of the nuclear bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki during World War II. Both women felt deeply disturbed by what they had seen, a mix of disgust, anger, and sadness welling up inside. But when they started talking about how they felt, something strange happened. One of the women was utterly frank about her feelings of upset, while the other suppressed her emotions, feigning indifference. Indeed, it seemed to the first woman that the second woman strangely had no emotional reaction at all. If anything, she seemed somewhat distracted and removed. Well, that was exactly how the conversation was supposed to go. Both women were volunteers in an experiment at Stanford University on the social consequences of emotional suppression. One woman had been instructed to hide her true feelings, and understandably, the emotionally open one felt off with her partner as they talked. Indeed, she had the sense that this was someone she would not want as a friend. The one who suppressed her true feelings felt tense and ill at ease in the conversation. Tellingly, her blood pressure rose steadily as the conversation went on. Suppressing such disturbing feelings takes a physiological toll. But here's the big surprise. The woman who was open and honest exhibited the same steady rise in blood pressure as the one suppressing her feelings. The tension was not just palpable, it was contagious. It was contagious. Goleman claims forthrightness is the brain's default response. Our neural wiring transmits our every minor mood onto the muscles of our face, making our feelings instantly visible. That comforts me. It's not just me. That happens too. Everybody's brain does that. But this display of emotion is automatic and unconscious, and so its suppression, he says, demands conscious effort. Being devious about what we feel, trying to hide our fear or anger, demands active effort and rarely succeeds perfectly. Our Soul Matters theme asks, what does it mean to live a life of honesty? Soul Matters minister Scott Taylor answers by saying, living a life of honesty is not just about telling the truth, and certainly not about possessing the right truths. It's about being true. Our UU approach to the virtue of honesty is one of our most distinctive features as a religion, he says. Whereas many of our sibling faith traditions focus on the truth of belief, we prioritize the truth of who we are. For us, to live a life of honesty is primarily about personal integrity rather than right belief. Unitarian sage Ralph Waldo Emerson captured this well when he said, "Whatever games are played with us, we must play no games with ourselves." Well, while reflecting on honesty so far this month, I've thought a lot about personal integrity, but I'm also wondering about community integrity. What does it mean to be a people of honesty? In this community, I wonder, do we tell each other what we are really feeling about what's going on in our personal lives and what is going on in the world? We are living in a tragic story, many tragic stories. And we are not actors. This is real life. I know that many of you are hurting from the losses in your lives. There have been so many this year. And I am hurting too, as I walk with you on those journeys. And our personal tragedies also live within societal pain, which shockingly and incredulously keeps getting worse. Do we trust each other enough to be honest in sharing our feelings? Can we share not only our frustration and anger, but also our numbness, deep grief, and despair? Or do we think we have to keep it together all the time when we're in this beloved community? Do we have to come across to each other as strong activists all the time? How do we think strong activists get their strength? I suspect from staying in touch with their heartbreak over a specific human and planetary suffering, and staying in touch with others who feel that suffering too, and deeply desire transformation. Honestly naming what's wrong in our personal lives and in society can bring us courage and strength to change it. I will name some you've heard before. We are facing a climate emergency. There is Russian interference in our elections as we sit here. State-sanctioned police violence against Black and brown people continues daily. There are children in cages and concentration camps at the border. And another mass shooting yesterday by a white supremacist. These are truths. These are naming honestly what's happening. What are the promises we have personally or collectively made to falsehood? Can we live with them? When will we draw a line in the sand to say no more? Because at least with the truth, we have something to work with.